I'm going to talk about canola and biofuels. It's a big deal. Here's a projection of what some folks in California were thinking a few years ago about what was going to happen, essentially that we would displace petroleum-based diesel with bio-based diesel. And it was pretty ambitious and maybe not accepted, but the truth is we're actually on track for that. So this chart shows only through the third quarter of last year, so only through September of last year, where things were at. In fact, now in California, there's more renewable diesel and biodiesel sold than diesel. And again, continuing to be on track for that projection that was made just a few years ago. And it's really quite stunning. Finally getting to where I was. Here's a picture that a colleague of mine in Southern California took. He mentioned it and took this picture, sent it to me. This is from his local Chevron station in Southern California in Orange County. And it looks kind of similar to what we'd see in North Dakota. On the right-hand side, you have gasoline blends, so different octane is kind of the differentiator there. But if I look on the left-hand side, I see renewable biodiesel B20. So that is in fact 20% biodiesel, 80% renewable diesel, 100% biomass-based diesel. So every gallon that comes off of that side came from vegetable oil, fat, or grease from either oil seeds that we raised or from animals that we slaughtered and processed. This is a Chevron station. If you go to a Marathon station in California, most Marathons are branded as Arco stations. They don't have this product, but almost all of the retail stations have R99. So it's in fact 99% renewable diesel. So this policy in California, which is driving the use of low carbon fuels, has created this market for renewable diesel, for biodiesel, to such a level that at the retail stations, it's displacing that petroleum-based diesel. And again, this feeds back to that thought that by 2030, you will not be selling petroleum-based diesel at all in the state of California. And of course, this goes back thinking about you as a canola producer. We need vegetable oil. And Randy kind of segued to that a little bit. A lot of news going on, both specific to canola oil as well as to vegetable oil generally. A lot of work had to be done, but in December, the U.S. government did approve new pathways. So new approvals. So canola-based products, specifically renewable diesel and jet fuel, would each create RINs, could participate in the RFS. Before this, they couldn't. Soybean oil could, some other products could, now canola can. This really opens up the market even more broadly. It allows canola to be fully incentivized to have that oil go into a renewable diesel refinery, where before it didn't make quite as much sense and likely would have stayed on the renewable diesel side. Also interesting news that came out. The original renewable fuel standard, which was passed in 2005 and 2007, mandated the use of biofuels. And within the law, it had actual mandated levels through 2022. And EPA could change those numbers, but there were levels for the different types of biofuels through last year. EPA's announcement in November was especially important because it not only told us what they were proposing through 2025, but also in general, kind of their philosophy about how they were going to think about biofuels and the RFS and renewable fuels. What's really disappointing, and I think this is kind of the consensus of industry and those who follow this, is that the numbers were really, in all respects, too low. The RFS mandates that obligated parties, so the blenders and the refiners of the world, have to use biofuel in different ways, but they set the numbers for biomass-based diesel far below what we're actually going to do. Again, because we're having this massive build out primarily in renewable diesel, that we're going to have an excess amount of supply on the market. There's going to be no demand pull. And consequently, the policy, not only in the near term, but possibly in the long term forever, really won't have much of an effect because the industry itself, the biofuel industry, has moved ahead of where EPA is. And this is, again, somewhat disappointing. The point of the RFS was to incentivize to increase biofuel use. It did pass 15, 20 years ago, but this really is kind of a signal of weak support within EPA for the RFS and for biofuels. And here's kind of the neat chart. Randy alluded to this a little bit, and something I've been thinking about a lot. I was hoping he'd have the answers. I have a lot of questions about canola oil and canola. Where are we going to grow the canola? Obviously, we're going to grow it in North Dakota and Canada, but how many acres or hectares? Where are we going to move that canola? Where are we going to crush that canola? Where are we going to move that canola oil? Where are we going to make renewable diesel? Where is that renewable diesel going to be sent? All of those issues we really don't know, but there is a border. Also important to know too, talk a lot about California. Canada itself has a national renewable fuel policy, and most provinces have a policy as well. And especially as you go to British Columbia, they have a very aggressive low carbon fuel standard policy, just like California does. But what I wanted to do is just show you some of these projects, and this is similar to what we're seeing in California, much of the United States, in these proposed projects, including or those that are underway, and just the scale of what we're talking about. So here are 4 projects in Canada. Again, if we look up, it should be Tidewater, BC, in Alberta, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, so not that far away. Their scale in terms of millions of gallons per year, MMGY is millions of gallons per year. But if we do that math, and so these are all big, but these numbers might not mean much to you. Just kind of hit pockets, you understand. So these are going to be, especially that 264 million gallon per year facility in Imperial, which is the one that Randy alluded to. That's going to be one of the biggest biofuel refineries on the planet when it's built and operating. That's actually a joint project between Imperial and Exxon. I would be shocked that does not get built and operate, according to schedule. But looking at that back of the envelope math, this is something I just want to get across so folks understand the scale of this. If I sum up the capacity of those facilities, and assuming they took 100% canola, most of these are flexible, so they can take other feedstocks. But if you look at where they're located, especially Imperial is in far northern Alberta. It doesn't make sense that we're going to be bringing even soybean oil there, or soybean oil or soybeans there. That's going to be canola, but that 529 doesn't have to all be canola anyway. So 529 million gallons, about 8 pounds of oil, vegetable oil per gallon of fuel. Canola is about 45% oil. What that tells me is I need 9.4 billion pounds of canola to meet the needs of those 4 plants. And again, they just want the oil. We still have the meal left over, but canola is an oil-driven product, which was different than how soybeans was. But if we look at that and do the math on a per acre basis at 1,800 pounds an acre, which is a pretty good yield, here in North Dakota, that would be taking all of the canola and the oil from all of those 5.2 million acres just to supply those 4 plants. And this should be your, oh, wow, jaw-dropping kind of moment. Then also to realize we have other facilities. We have, obviously, a renewable diesel facility in Dickinson. There's one, I believe it's near Great Falls in Montana. There's others coming online that are in the canola region. And really looking at this, we have to be ready for this dialogue, this conversation, this battle in the market for vegetable oil. And again, too, we know, canola oil has certain properties that make it in almost all applications a more desirable food ingredient than some of the other oil seeds. I mean, unless you need something very basic and just dealing on price, canola is a premium product. But at the same time, we can look at the map and know that these facilities are most certainly going to be taking all or primarily canola oil as their feedstock. So that was my prepared comments. I think if I can click one more time, I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a ton of stuff going on in this space, enough to fill hours and hours. But this is really kind of a highlight of what's going on. Again, there is tremendous demand. There is a need for vegetable oil. Canola oil is going to play a place, but exactly how this feeds all the way back through the supply chain to you and your farm, we don't know yet. Again, one of the nice things too about economics is you don't necessarily have to know all of this. You just have to look at the price of canola. That relative to other crops that you might consider growing is the signal that you need, assuming that the rest of the market is going to sort this stuff out. But really, there's a lot to be sorted out.